welcome to the Beach Bum Bookworm. I'm so thrilled that y'all found me, and I'm so excited to be here. This is my first ever YouTube video, and I've been thinking about doing booktube for so long, and I've followed so many people for so long that I just kept thinking, man, they look like they're having so much fun. I want to do that. So today is that day. My channel is going to be called the Beach Bum Bookworm, and it's going to be mostly about cozy mysteries because that's primarily what I read. However, I am going to be sprinkling in some other videos of other book genres and just some other cozy stuff along the way. And subscribe and come back and see me, and let's chat cozies. I thought that I would start with what made the most sense to me, which is my favorite cozy series of all time. Guys, this was really hard for me to make. I felt like the list I started with was so ridiculous. It was like every book I've ever read. Apparently those are all my favorites, and that just wasn't going to work. But I felt like when I was like narrowing it down that I was betraying friends and loyal, companions. It was horrible, but I have done it, and here we are. So before we jump into that list, the last thing I want to say is I am making this channel to talk about books. That's my entire reason for making it, and specifically, like I said, cozies. So please comment below. Let me know what your favorite cozies are, what cozies I should check out. My TBR is not long enough. I need more suggestions. Okay, that's not true, but I will take any suggestions because I always like adding new books to my TBR. So without further ado, my favorite cozy mystery series of all time. So the first series I want to talk about is the Darling Delilah series by Susan Wittig Albert. And this series is about a group of garden club ladies in the 1920s. So you're starting to see what is the start of the Great Depression. So they're at their garden club meetings, you're starting to hear them talk about what's going on at the bank. People are saying the bank's having problems, all this, gossiping and concern about the banks, which we know is what's to come. The really great things about this series to me and why it's one of my favorites is I love elderly people in books. And I mean, I love elderly people in general, but I love elderly people in books who particularly are like really spunky and full of life and sass and just are spitfires. And these ladies fit that bill. They're amazing. The other thing that I really love about this series is periodically at the beginning of the chapter or mixed in, there'll be like really cool, interesting tidbits and tips of how to survive in the Great Depression, I guess. So it's like how to stretch your supplies, and here's a recipe for wood cleaner. Is it a recipe if it's non-food related? Let me know in the comments below. Would you call that a recipe? I'm going to call it a recipe, at least for today, until someone says differently. The first book in this series, I'm always going to give the first book in the series if I'm not talking about a particular book in a series, because if you're like me and you're neurotic, you have to start at the beginning. Most cozies are going to give you enough detail that you can start anywhere in the series, but again, if you have to start from the beginning like me, you're welcome. So the first book in this series is called The Darling Delilahs and the Cucumber Tree. I'm going to put the book right here, right somewhere in there. And there are 8 books in this series, and I actually think Miss Albert is working on a new one, and I couldn't be more excited. And if she's not, cruel joke, please, Miss Albert, put out a new Darling Delilahs. All right. Let me know if you've read that, checked it out, and what you think of it. The next one that I want to talk about is the Royal Spinous series. It is by Rhys. Bowen is spelled R-H-Y-S, so I hope I'm not pronouncing her name wrong. If I am and you know how to say it correctly, please let me know in the comments below, but please tell me nicely. I want to say it correctly, so I know how to say it. So the first book in this series is called Her Royal Spinous. The main character in this book is Lady Georgie, and she is 34th in line to the throne. I love that. And so this also takes place in the, well, not 1920s, but early 1930s. So when the first book starts out, she's in Scotland at her family's castle. The only family left that's living there is her brother, who is the Duke, Bingy, and his wife, Fig. And they're not the nicest to Georgie, and they're just rather ridiculous and stuffy about things. So Georgie feels like she needs some independence and freedom, and she's going to spread her wings, and she's going to get it in London. So she does. She goes for great until she finds a dead body in her bathtub. Yeah. So not so great. So the detectives, of course, think that she's involved or the prime suspect because it's her flat. And, there's a lot of stuff going on between she can't bring, a scandal to the royal family, and she doesn't want Binky to, force her back to, Scotland. So she is going to figure out what's going on. She puts on her big girl sleuthing boots and she gets to it. There are 14 books in this series, and one is better than the next. It is fabulous. And the last thing I'll say about this series is that, I listen to this series on audio. I don't do a whole lot of audio, but I crochet a lot. And so I listen to audiobooks while I crochet. And if you listen to audiobooks, you know that a narrator can make or break the best of stories. And this narrator is fabulous. Check that out. All right. So the next one is the Southern Sewing Circle series. Okay. So if you guys made me, and I mean forced me, please don't force me. But if I had to narrow down this list even further, this series would still make it. Promise that. It's that good. Again, it's in Casey. If you watch a lot of BookTube, and particularly other cozy mystery people, you have probably heard this series talked about. The two that I can think of that I watch very faithfully and that I love is Intentionally Bookish and Courtagonist. They're both wonderful. I believe both of them had talked about this series. The first book in it is So Deadly, and the main character is Tori Sinclair. She is a librarian, and she has moved to Sweetbriar to be the head librarian in the town. She joins the Southern Sewing Circle series, and that is where a lot of the characters and quirkiness of the series come in. These ladies, again, a lot of them are elderly, and boy, they're another group. They are full of sass and moxie and anything else that you can think of that's kind of along that line. I love them, love them, love them, love them. In the first book, there is a dead body found either in the back of the library or the back of her house, Tori's house. I can't remember which, but it's one that it's a place that she would be heavily associated with. And being the newcomer in a very small town that's very close-knit, she's seen as the prime suspect automatically, just out of probably loyalty to everybody else. Well, Tori wants to make Sweetbriar her home, so she's got to figure out what's going on to clear her name. It is a fabulous series. There are 12 books in it, and I hope that it does not finish anytime soon. It is the Pepper Martin series. Oh my gosh, this series is so funny, y'all. All right, so this series is by Casey Daniels. The first one in it is called Dawn of the Dead, spelled D-O-N, like a mafia Don. All right, so if you're like me and most cozy mystery lovers, you love the puns. You love the play on words. I love them. I am that person. I love Laffy Taffy jokes. I love all the silliness. I can't say anything more about it. And this and cozy mysteries are fabulous at those things. This book, Dawn of the Dead, the main character in this series is named Pepper Martin. And so in the first book, her dad gets arrested for some sort of white-collar crime. He's a surgeon or a doctor. He's very prominent. I don't remember if it's fraud or embezzlement, but he goes to prison. Pepper has never had a job in her life. She has no skills. And on top of everything else, her wealthy fiance and her have broken up. So she needs a job, and she's not really hireable at a whole lot of things. So she has to take any job she can get. And that becomes a guide of cemetery tours. Yeah. Which is hilarious. I love this premise. So while she's working, she falls, conks her head, and now she can see and hear ghosts. And that is where the Mafia Don, Gus, comes in. So Gus needs help figuring out what happened to him so he can rest peacefully. And boy, oh boy, he is not going to let Pepper get away or rest until she helps him. Gus was such a great character. I actually wish he would have been a sidekick for the rest of the series, like as like Pepper's sidekick or something, brought him back because he was that good. There are 10 books in this series. And again, I hope that it's not the last. There was a big jump in between, like, I don't remember if it was 8 and 9 or 9 and 10, where we thought it was over. Like 4 or 5 years, maybe even a little bit more, went by without a book, and then a new book was put out, and now one other one since then. And I was like, yes, she's coming back. Let me know if you've read this and if you thought it was as much fun as I did. The next one couldn't come at a better time. It's the Year-Round Christmas series by Vicki Delany. I love this series, y'all, and like I said with that I love the play on words and all the puns. Vicki Delany in this series, fabulous. All right, so get this. Her main character's name is Mary, spelled Merry Christmas. They live in Rudolph, New York. Her sisters are named Eve and Carol. And the first book in this series is called Rusty Murdered Gentleman. All right. So in this series, like I said, the main character is Mary Wilkinson. They live in Rudolph, New York, and it is a year-round Christmas town. So all their revenue, all their tourism and everything is revolved around Christmas. So Mary owns a shop in town called Mrs. Claus's Treasures, which sells ornaments and decorations and all the things. And a reporter is coming to Rudolph to do a piece about Rudolph's Christmas spirit. Unfortunately, he is murdered. And yeah, so to make matters worse, he is poisoned with a gingerbread cookie. And Mary's best friend, Vicki, owns the Christmas town's bakery. So she is obviously the prime suspect. Mary knows her best friend did not do this. So she is going to, figure out what is going on in Vicki's name. There are 5 books in this series. Oh, it is so good, y'all. All right, so I have 2 more. The next one is Candy Shop series by Amanda Flower, and the first book in is called Assaulted Caramel, like the crime assault and then salted caramel. Okay. So Assaulted Caramel, the main character is Bailey King. She was a very prominent chocolatier in New York City. Her grandparents owned Swissman Sweets, which is this candy shop in a small town in Harvest, Ohio. And Grandpa has fallen ill, and they need some help from Bailey. So she goes back to help him. She ends up staying. This series, oh my gosh, Amanda Flower is like the queen of creating a setting and characters. So the setting, I mean, you really feel like you're there, like walking down the streets of Harvest with Bailey. The characters are fabulous. There's, there's a pet pig in this, and boy, he causes some shenanigans. And there are, she just does a fabulous job of creating what in my mind when I shut my eyes and think about cozy. This is just something that comes to mind. A small town, very close knit, a lot of community involvement. There's everybody knows everybody. It's just it's a fabulous series. In the first book, Assaulted Caramel, she has gone back to help her grandparents, and a dead body is found in their candy kitchen, and he has been stabbed with Grandpa's knife. And so Grandpa is now the prime suspect, and Bailey is just not having any of that. So she is going to figure it out. Currently, I think there are 6 books in this series. There's also a spinoff from this series, and it is a matchmaking series, also taking place in Harvest, Ohio. The first book is called Matchmaking Can Be Murder, and it is fabulous as well. Fabulous. Check those books out. Let me know in the comments below if you already have and what you think of them. The very last book, or the very last series, is the Gladdy Gold series, and it is by Rita Lakin. And the first book is called Getting Old is Murder. And Gladdy Gold is a private investigator, and she is a retiree in Fort Lauderdale, Florida. And she lives in a retirement complex. And again, I think it's that presence of all the really fun, quirky elderly people. They're always out speed walking or doing laps in the pool. They're talking about how they have to get to supper and it's 3 o'clock in the afternoon, but they need to get the early bird special. And it's just so much fun. There's 2 characters in the complex named High and Lois that are married. And so they go by High and Low. High is always telling very inappropriate old man jokes. It just sounds like so much fun. I think it's maybe because I strive to be still as spunky as they are in their older age. So those are my favorite series of all time. I have a ton others, and it was so hard eliminating them, but I know that I'll be talking about them all the time in the future. Please comment below and let me know what your favorite series are. And on your way down a comment, make sure you stop and hit the subscribe so that you can find me again and we can continue to talk about cozies. I'm so excited. The last thing I want to say is I mentioned Intentionally Bookish and Courtagonist. They are 2 fabulous, fabulous, fabulous cozy mystery booktubers. Check them out as well if you haven't already. All right, until next time, may all your future reads be 5 stars. Bye, everyone.